I can record.
But yeah, so let's get this pairing started. You said you were doing 1511. They made OAuth tokens. They have to have an expiration date.
15.0. So that was the last
15.0.
breaking
Okay.
change. And then this breaking change, we're saying that all personal access tokens must have an expiration.
Okay.
Um, and that it includes personal, like for real people, and then also
Mhm.
for bot users, like project access tokens and group access tokens.
Oh, that's big breaking change. And okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'll show you where we're at with our plans. Let me share my screen. What am I doing?
Okay.
I'll share my entire window. And yeah, there's been this is me writing a mega comment last night, way
It's
too late.
okay.
9 hours ago. I'm like, that's why I'm hardly awake right now.
Oh
So
no.
I started down this path. You know how it is when you start working on something and you're like, I'll just do what this issue says. And then you're like, wait a second, I don't think
Yeah.
this is right. So there's a setting, there's an
The issue is
instance
so
level
small.
setting.
The
What?
issue is very small. Like the issue is very
Very small.
small. Yeah, I feel like it's almost like a hidden like octopus underneath, the water, and you see like a
Yes.
little tentacle sticking out of the water. So we're making all access tokens have an expiration date, like all of them. Okay.
All of them,
Okay.
yeah. And so there is an instance level setting that's currently available. I believe it's like an ultimate only
Mhm.
feature. And you can have this, I think there's a group level setting and then there's an instance level setting, and they're both like licensed features. And
Okay.
so the issue
Oh,
was like, oh, we'll make this it can't be blank,
right.
and it's a maximum of 365. And like the thing that's not stated here, but comes through in the many, many comments, is that we're also no longer saying this is a licensed feature. We're saying this instance level setting is going to be in all versions of GitLab. Um,
So even people that
so
are running the free version, because it's like a protective measure, right?
exactly. It's a
Okay.
security thing.
Hmm.
Security wants this. I guess we're security minded, so we want it too. I mean, security wanted 30 days, so we fought back for 365, which I think will make people
Yeah.
happier.
I feel like
There was so
30 days for the people that have to manage the rotations. That's a lot. Yeah.
and the rotation is being worked on separately. That is in progress, but that's like another thing to develop, right? If you have
Mhm.
some personal access token or a group access token that's being used and you need to make sure it rotates every year, you have to build, or every 30 days, whatever it is you want to do, you have to build an integration with GitLab to rotate it. So that is happening. And so, anyways, I started work on this yesterday. And I quickly realized something super scary. And this is kind of just interesting knowledge to have, which is that when this instance level setting is changed, and currently it's only an ultimate setting, but we were going to move it to community edition.
Mhm.
It actually calls a class, which calls a class, which calls a class, which revokes any tokens that are no longer valid because of the new setting.
Oh,
So
is
this
that
seemed like,
new?
mm-mm. Well, I shouldn't say. I'm pretty sure this has been around for a while. Let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, this has been around for
Oh,
3 years. So, and I'm guessing I haven't tested this locally. I'm guessing it like gives you a warning in the settings, like, hey, you're about to revoke a bunch of tokens, you know.
I wouldn't, yeah, I
Um,
hope, but I hope. I'm gonna go on my GDK. So will my GDK have this setting?
it should if you have an ultimate license.
Oh, I have no idea what I have, so we'll see. I'm gonna
Probably
play
do if you
while
have a
we're
license.
chatting. My license
Okay.
is very it's old, so I don't know what it is.
Okay. Yeah, and anyways, there's ways we can get around this. But, kind of stepping back a second and thinking, what are we trying to accomplish here? What we're trying to accomplish is not moving this setting. We want to ensure that there are no tokens without an expiration.
Yeah.
Hold on, my husband just texted me.
No worries.
He just got to New Zealand. Okay. So I was like, okay, this scares me.
Yeah.
What can we do instead? And so instead I opened an MR that overrides the expires at setter. And I did this behind a feature flag to not cause an incident. But basically, if there is no value, if the value is nil, then we default to 365. So this is not adding a validation on tokens. It is simply like just setting a default value, which is like kind of a weird user experience thing. Like people are going to be creating tokens with no expiration and we'll be like, surprise, there's an expiration.
Yeah.
But what this is going to allow us to do, because it's at a low level, is run a batched background migration that backfills expiration for all existing tokens.
Okay.
And then add the validation after, because we don't want to add a validation first and then have people's tokens be invalid.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also played with adding a validation. This is another branch that I had where I was just going to validate it on create. I kind of hate validations that are just on create or on update though.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think so anyways, I have this MR in progress
That might
where
be
we're
like the most boring solution though. So maybe it's okay as a step. I don't know. Like I saw you left a note that you're not going to leave it there. So maybe it's okay. I will say I checked this thing. It says maximum allowable lifetime for access token. There's a day. If it's blank, leave blank for no limit. It does say when enabled, existing access tokens may be revoked. But that's like, I'm not changing mine. I guess I'll change it and see what happens.
Yeah, change it. Well, and see if you have
I'm
any
gonna see if
tokens that have
there's
no
any like,
expiration.
there's no notices. Nah, it didn't warn me or anything.
It
There's a
did.
like note at the bottom that says like, I feel like it should be, maybe the UX for it could be a little bit more like red or like yellowy or like warny or something. Because I
Yeah,
could see
like,
that
are you
someone might just
sure?
run right past that.
Yeah.
I have no idea if my tokens were just expired. So
You could manually update one to have no expiration.
Yeah.
Before you change it and see if it gets revoked. It would have to be an unrevoked. So I actually did what you're doing right now yesterday, but I forgot I had one without an expiration, but it was already revoked. And what it does is revokes them. So I did not have a successful test because I didn't have the right data set up.
Okay.
And like ultimately what we want is to have that setting be for all editions and to be a default value of 365 and allow blank, not allowing blank values. But I think the breaking change, and this is like where I think it's helpful to bounce this off of you because this is my first major release, and like what is a breaking change is sometimes up for interpretation.
Yeah, I saw the very long discussion thread, which I did not participate in, but I kind of like was reading some of the back and forths about what is a breaking change with regards to the API.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah, like because I think I commented because they were asking, well, is it a breaking change to go from like a 403 to a 401 or something? And it's like, well, maybe if somebody's specifically looking for that response status.
Yeah, it's really, having it a publicly consumable API, like really,
yeah.
I feel like, I don't know, this thing, it almost feels like it needs to be like the release post, it needs to be, I don't know, I feel like needs to be maybe some communication. I don't know, that would be my first like thing. It's
In
supposed
this MR?
yeah, like that MR needs to
Yeah.
be part of the release post. And then I don't know if I don't know who I would ask to be like, does there need to be any other communication outside of that, that like this is a change, a breaking change that's gonna like affect everybody? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, we have, where is
You have the
well, there is a so there's a deprecation notice.
yeah.
And so I can add a breaking change notice to this MR for sure. And that this is also, oh, interesting. Um, I this is also why I added a feature flag. My new thing is I'm trying to be like a lot more liberal with my feature flag usage.
Yeah.
Um, because we
It's
don't intend,
safer.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. It's safer. And we actually are adding this with default enabled true, but it just allows us to, when this goes out, to turn off the feature flag and be like, JK didn't want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I agree, there is some risk to this change. Like, certainly, and this is where I don't understand exactly how breaking changes work on GitLab.com versus, because we're hoping to get this into 16.0. That's the goal. And somebody upgrades 16.0, they know that they can no longer have automations that create personal access tokens without an expiration, right? But on GitLab.com, say this gets deployed tomorrow, and a GitLab.com customer has tokens being created with expires and nil, this actually won't raise an error for them because it will set a default value. But we
Yeah.
do plan on following on by adding that validation.
Okay.
So it will raise an error later. So, and anyways, we're going to do this, and then we're going to do the migration. After this gets merged, we have a background migration MR that's in progress, that's going to do a batch background migration to set the value for existing access tokens, and then we're going to deal with the application setting stuff third.
Yeah. I think trying to think, I haven't had a ton of experience with like these breaking changes that affect users like system wide. I know I think we need to get this done and get it in. But I'm wondering, I'm trying to like think of like things that I've seen, there's like those alerts that sometimes, I saw one about like breaking changes in GitLab 16.0 is coming, see what's happening. I don't know. It may be something to think about.
Yeah. Well, we will. I hope we're doing it in a somewhat graceful way, in the sense that we're going to do a batch background migration. So anybody who's already using a PAT that doesn't have an expiration will be able to continue using that. We're just going to update it so that it has an expiration. So where people will deal with a breaking change is if they are somehow creating new PATs programmatically with a nil expiration, and at some point, not via this MR, but via a follow-on, or actually via this MR, maybe, because I'm currently adding, making sure that they're not setting expiration longer than 365. So if somebody is creating PATs, they have some kind of process that creates PATs with a 2-year expiration date, then they are going to start getting errors immediately once this is deployed.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was just thinking on the year from now, when there's like a bunch of PATs that expire that maybe people don't expect to, or if that's not like a worry. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that is a worry.
I don't know how to fix that.
On the issue. We have people on the issue being like, we hate this.
No, I
downing
know,
it.
I know.
And
I guess I was just like, how to communicate, like that communication doesn't have to stop this thing, but I'm just like thinking like,
yeah,
how does that, because it's going to be a while from now and it may cause a bunch of problems where everyone has already forgotten that this, you know what I mean? Like you might just like, oh, that was a year ago. It's, when 17.0 comes out, but I don't know.
No, maybe an email or something. You're right. Like maybe we email the owner of every personal access token or group access token that is updated in this migration, and we like repeatedly and say, by the way, we updated, it's kind of like when services say, by the way, we're going to shut down your account because of this
Yeah.
XYZ. Like, by the way, we set this expiration for your pat. So just know that.
I just know, like, when I was at previous jobs, the way that people knew that things had expired that always had expiration dates is like something would stop working and somebody would be like, oh yeah,
Yep,
I forgot. Let me set a reminder for next time. And then they wouldn't.
totally.
And then it would be like on repeat, which is
Uh-huh,
fine. But
totally.
I just yeah, I guess I just don't want to have an incident created when a bunch of people are like, my pad's not working to, like in a year.
Totally. And it's going to be
But
right
let's,
around
yeah.
17.0. So we're going to all be
I
stressed
know, which is
anyway.
not the greatest time frame.
But see, now, Terry, you and I both know, and the recording knows. So it's like three people know at least. Two
Tell
humans and
somebody.
one robot.
Yeah. I would just wonder if like create, and I just like literally don't know what even teams I would ask. Customer support? I don't know.
Mm,
Like
yeah,
that
that's a good
might
point.
be a good place to ask and just say like, hey, this is happening as part of breaking changes. Like, do you have
Hmm.
any previous, like, I don't, you know, if you have like a stable customer support counterpart. We have someone that like,
Yeah, we
I don't know
do.
if
We
they're
do.
officially our
Artie.
stable. Yeah, that might be something I would be like, what do you think?
Yeah.
Because we have that a lot with our stuff where it's like I don't think we're doing a great job of when uh indexing into Elasticsearch is paused, which it happened yesterday. What that means is people's updates don't get put in for any changes that happen while indexing is paused. And there's really
Mm-hmm.
like no indication in the UI at all, like that's even happening. And so there has been times where there was an issue that caused it to be paused for like 5 days, which is
Oh,
a
yeah.
really long time. This one, it was
Hmm.
only for like a 24 hours, so it wasn't that bad, but it is still something like it can create problems, and we don't have that solution yet about like how that gets communicated out properly.
Mm,
We do have an issue for it,
okay.
but do you have code that you want to look at, or are you just looking to talk about like approach?
No, I feel I was just updating a test. So the thing that is like the code change here is really small. Like if you look at the files, it's pretty much just this one method here. And then there's like a lot of spec changes because we have a bunch of specs that set nil expiration expires at oh, I'm just closing the window. I
And
my
then
previous smoke alarm.
no worries. I guess are there specs that expect it to be empty and now it's not, so they're failing.
Yeah, and so I've been updating those incrementally. I mean, I've already done a bunch of them, but
Yeah,
I just added
I would
that
also
was
run the package in QA, like, and make sure that that one
mm,
doesn't have any updates that need to be happening under that QA folder,
okay.
because that would be one thing I would do.
Okay, I'll do that for
Yeah.
sure. Let me write that down really quick.
The
Package and
thing that
QA.
stinks about that is that package in QA like might have other failures, but hopefully it won't be too hard to pluck out the ones that are
Yeah.
related to this. Um,
Okay. I just updated. Let me look at the Git diff. I just added this method. Again, this is protected behind the feature flag just in
mhm.
case we decide we hate it. Um, and this it validates expires at. I had some tests, those are fine. I just changed this because this test had an expires at
Oh
of
my goodness.
99999. That's
Yeah.
very far in the future. Definitely the sun will have exploded by then, I think.
Hmm.
So I just changed that to
Okay.
be here. I actually don't even, it's funny, like looking at this isn't even referenced in the code. Um, so I actually wonder if I can comment it out and run this.
Oh.
But maybe what it is it's trying to make sure that this is like a scope expiring and notified. So it's making sure that like this isn't returned by
Oh
anything.
yeah. Yeah.
So I guess it is like there for a reason. So I'm going to run that. I think it was failing right before I joined this call and I was not really sure why. So let's see
Okay.
if that's still the case. Ay,
Yeah,
ay,
it
ay,
did
ay,
say
ay.
breaking changes can be considered major if it affects many users or represents a significant change in behavior. And I feel like both of those are probably true. So um
I forgot to describe class there.
I can't tell if there was actually a 4 in that or if that was in the editor.
There was a 4.
I thought so.
Did
Maybe
I
I
have a
read it wrong. It
typo?
might have been in the editor.
I
Like,
probably, yep, you're right.
okay. I don't use like VI or Vim, so sometimes I'm like, is that like the right side column or
Yeah.
row
No, and I
indicator?
have like I have all these linters that like I don't love it. It creates a lot of noise in
Oh,
the
there you go.
view. Yay, we did it. You
I
can't see
like
me
until last
here.
week I didn't even know that you could put linters. I thought people just like coded like just
Just
like
raw.
whatever, this is great, it's totally going to be fine, and then somehow fix it later. Like I don't know. But then, I mean, I
No,
see you have
no.
coloring, like things are colored and
Yeah. No, I have let me see. So I started using Vim because my first employer had standard dot files that everybody used, and I like still
Mm.
use them to this day. And I think where are they? I think it's Vim bundles.
uh
So there's like I have look at all these bundles I have. They're basically like gems.
okay.
Um, there's like
Yeah,
Vim
I went to,
Rail.
what was that guy, Pancake, no, the big Rails person, like there's like some big Rails, one of the Rails owners, what are they called, like the stewards of Rails.
Yeah, core team members.
Yes.
Yeah.
He gave one of the talks at RailsConf about writing your own linters, and I was just like, oh, you can put a linter in VI.
Oh,
So
oh
I
my
was
gosh.
like,
Yeah,
oh, I'm
I
not
used
switching
to,
over, but
when I was at this company, Thoughtbot, where we used these shared dot files, we hosted the San Francisco Vim meetup, and it was
mhm,
basically like us and then a bunch of like Square dudes, like
mhm,
from Square, the company.
mhm.
And I think it would have been a better use of time if we just focus on like Vim fundamentals and getting better at Vim. But I feel like it ended up just being like, look at this cool plugin, look at this cool
Uh,
plugin. And there are cool ones like
yeah.
I'm sure that your editor is classier than this and stuff. But like for example, I have one called I think it's called Vim Split. And if I just do GS and then if I do GS, it like automatically splits stuff for me and does the
Nice.
commas as I want. Like that's a plugin thing. Vim doesn't do
Yeah,
for
I am
you,
not
but
I use RubyMine. I'm not a power user and I'm a habitual mouse user, so I'm like trying to work on my shortcut keys. Um, RubyMine's kind of, it's, yeah, it's fine. It's got its own little
yeah.
eccentricities. It's
Yeah,
also a
I know. I
memory
tried to
hog.
use Ruby mine in the past, but it's definitely there's a learning curve. Same with VS Code. I was doing a Golang project and I was using VS Code. I was like
I don't like
hating
it.
it. Yeah,
I
I was
have
hating
it,
it.
but I started using Goland at least because it's got the same shortcut keys that RubyMine has,
Hmm.
and so it feels a lot more familiar, which I'm sure is why people use VI because they know all of the shortcut keys. Well, the ones
Yes,
that I don't
yeah.
know. So.
Like I do like no, and I'm pretty good. Like my test, when I run the test just there, I'm running this whole test file now because that's what was failing before. I
Mm.
just do spacebar T and it runs the whole file, which I know like RubyMine
Nice.
gives you something similar where you can easily run the test, but it's really nice.
Yeah. I don't know, I
Okay,
just
so
use the
that
terminal RubyMine. It's got its problems. Cool.
okay. So this is my dash add validation on expiration date. Expires at
Yeah, let
date.
me look up the database guidelines for, I know there's like so they changed something in at the docs image, mess up my shortcut to the GitLab docs, but that's fine. Database review guidelines. Not a thing. You're just gonna be. So I guess the plan is to, oh, there was some stuff. Hold on, avoiding downtime. Changing
Well, this
column.
doesn't have a migration yet.
Yeah, I was just looking like there's some guidelines on like um adding a not null constraint to an existing column.
Oh, okay.
Because
Yeah,
that's
we
what you're essentially
will
going to be doing, and that might be helpful, maybe not for this MR, but for what's
the
I sent it
follow-on.
in the Zoom chat.
In the chat. Okay.
It's a it's a two release.
Yes.
Two
So I think
milestone.
this is what we're doing now, and we'll have to do this next one. It's going to be a little bit tight and messy. So question for you on, so one thing I was looking at, which there is my code.
Let me let you find it while I hit the restroom very quickly. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay, I am back.
Okay, cool. So I was just looking at this feedback from Abu Bakr on my team. He is a real Ruby whiz. I love his input. So he
there's a chance of having empty text as input.
Yeah, I actually didn't. I don't know if I knew this. Maybe a past me with more sleep knew this. That that empty string evaluates to true. So if you're doing this or this, then that will evaluate to empty string, which we don't want. Great call out, Abu Bakr. So I'm going to add a test scenario for this because this hasn't come up in any of our tests. Add this comment here. So I pushed a commit with the other change that Imra suggested. And now I'm going to make a change to deal with this.
Okay.
Here. So, where was that? What is the expired? That was wrong split. Expires in. I thought I had, look at my changes again. I thought I had tests for just this expires at. Oh, it's expires at. I keep messing this up. So expires at is a date object.
Yeah.
And in my mind, only date time objects can have the word at. Like timestamps have at and dates are on.
Yeah.
But this one is at. And I keep thinking it's in, which makes no sense. So anyways, that's what's happening.
No worries. I feel like it's because I feel like there's like a 365 days and you're like, it expires in 365 days. Like,
yeah, yes, exactly. Like, expires in that's like the English. Ruby is good for if you can say it in English, you can probably code it that way. But not in this case. So these are the validations I just added. Oh, here we go. Describe expires at. I'm going to go down to 466. So this is when the feature flag is true. And then I'm going to add, so context expires at set to nil.
Yeah, you might even be able, if you want to be fancy, you could do a table test if it's going to be the same test over and over. But that could be like once you get it working.
Okay, yeah, I like that. So I haven't made any changes to the code. It's still.
So you're like, I do that a lot where I'm like, I want this thing to fail.
I need it to fix it. And I need to add an end. Yeah, I need to see it fail first, or
I really like that way of programming. I know that people do test-driven tests, but or test-driven development, I really can't. My brain does not function like that. It's really hard for me to
Yeah, it's really hard. You just can't know until you've seen it fail, right? Like it could
Yeah.
be failing,
Or if I'm
passing. It
like,
could have
this
been
thing
passing
is
already.
broken and the test didn't catch it. I want to write a
Yeah.
test that's good enough to catch it. And then I want to
Yes.
see, I fix it. So that's good.
Cool. So you think we could do a table test here? Or you think that would be good?
If it's the same exact test, it looks like it's almost identical. Yeah. Do you use them often? I feel like sometimes they're like crazy and it's hard to read, but in some cases it's helpful where you could just be like, oh, for these token, because if you now have to support like another token value, then you'd have to add like another test on. But I feel like that's more like a non-blocking comment if it's really
Yeah. Well, the other thing we could do is um we can do like nil empty string
yeah, that's
each
fine
do
too.
uh
As long as we're not using it in lets, I think it should be fine because I saw that there was
I saw that too. That was so
yeah.
interesting
Yes, I found
from
that that was
Peter.
like it was a very hard for me to understand what it was trying to say was bad about it. And then once I did, I was like, oh, well, yes, clearly.
So this is saying avoid using spaces.
Around a method call.
Oh, yeah, here. I accidentally
Oh.
had a space there. See this that's a linter, like telling me there's
It's
something wrong
almost
there.
like where they put the Rubocop ignores um in the same spot.
Okay, so I'm running this. So this just makes it a little bit cleaner. It's not.
Yeah. I don't think it needs to be tabled. This is also fine. I've done this with feature flags when it's just easier.
Okay. Okay, cool. So now I'm gonna patch add this and I test.
What is that command that you're doing?
Git add dash P.
Oh, is it like stash dash P?
And yeah, so it patch adds things. So the value part of the value is that it forces me to review what I've done as I add it, as opposed to
Yeah. No,
adding
that's
random
great.
stuff. And then also if I can't remember which one of these it is. Basically, sometimes you want to even split it further and you
Mhm.
can, one of these options. So yes just means like, yes, add this
Yeah.
to the staged, to my stage changes. But there's one of these where you can just like split it up even more. So if you've kind of, the day has gone away from you and you've added something here, something there, and you want to be separate commits, then you can actually split them up.
That's really cool. For some reason, I guess it never occurred to me to check if the dash P command existed for anything other than stash. Um,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah, it's really good. And it's funny because I was pairing with Carrie Miller and she was like, "Oh my gosh, like you use patch add too." And I was like, "Yeah." Um, okay. Oh, you can manually edit the current hunk. You
That's
can say all. You can say no, don't do this hunk. Oh, it's S, that's the one. The option, it's not printed, but you
oh,
can do
that's
split.
real cute.
Maybe we should add a a patch to Git and ask them to include that option in the printed
Yeah, it seems really
list.
helpful.
Yeah, I definitely used it because I've had times, I can't think of when that was. I think it's usually when I'm responding to MR feedback, but I want to like do it in separate hunks for
Yeah.
the reviewer.
I sometimes will just, I mean, I'm very messy sometimes where I'll like have stuff and just kind of move it around to different branches because I'm like, don't want to lose it. But then I'm like, well, I don't really want this attached to this thing. So I'll kind of like stash things in
yeah,
hunks, chunks.
yeah. I never do. I never use it for stash. I hadn't even thought of that. So I guess we're opposite.
That's cool. I learned something. Um,
Mhm.
Yeah, I guess if you need reviews on any of this stuff, I am at the end of my day, but I can do reviews for anyone that needs for you or anything that you need reviews on for tomorrow. I can do database initial reviews and then
Thank you. Well, so after I'm done with this, I am gonna hop over to the MR that Smriti opened. Oh,
Mhm.
batched migration. So let me see.
That one I would
She's
encourage to like get that one started review. There's not a ton of
Yeah,
database maintainers.
totally. No, I agree. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna after we get
Before
off
you
this
go off of that,
call,
okay. Yes,
yeah, I
before
know. I think I'm gonna
has the pipeline been run? I will say if it hasn't, run it, and that will help the reviewer. One of those
see which
thingies
one.
has you have to open up one of the green checks.
Okay.
The long one, not that one. Which one is the long one? It's not that one.
This
The
one?
one where like all the tests are, all the RSpec tests. It's like one of the
Um,
middle checks.
okay. Not that one. Not
No.
that
Yeah, I
one.
just know where it
This
looks like on my
one.
screen. One more. I think it's that one. Yeah. So there's a database testing job that a lot of people don't run, and it adds time onto your review. Oh, it's not there. Why is it not there?
Maybe
Damn
it's
it.
under this exclamation
Oh
pointy
yeah,
one.
that one. Okay,
Okay. Oh, check
that one.
migration.
No, the one underneath it, but also that
This
check
one.
migration. Yeah, run that.
Okay.
That is required for database migrations, I think. Well, just run it anyways, and if it doesn't run anything, then it's fine. But it's supposed to run stuff kind of on a version of production database.
Okay.
That's
Yeah. And then it
where
outputs a comment, right, with information.
it does. And
Okay.
when those are done before the review is done, it makes it a lot easier for the database reviewer because it's
Okay.
already run. I know those exclamation point migration jobs, those need to be checked to see and make sure they don't actually need to be fixed. They're allowed to
Okay.
fail, but sometimes they do contain issues. But the database
Okay.
reviewer and the maintainer should look at them.
Okay. Yeah, I think so if a new pipeline is run, like I know I looked at a version of this.
Yeah.
Um, oh good, we already have one approval here. Love that for us. I know he left some feedback,
Oh,
Omar,
good.
and
Okay.
I think it was addressed. But I'm gonna make sure because I think it was near the end of Smriti's
Okay.
day when she did this. Like I'm gonna respond to this, for example. Like I don't think a thumbs up is enough. Like he needs to know that we've, I think, done everything.
Well, it looks like the thing
Um,
did run. So I don't, what is that? Exceeded guidelines.
exceeded. Oh, I think that we already knew about this because she mentioned adding a partial index on expires
Okay.
at. She mentioned that in a comment somewhere. Oh, she's been working hard. So, I'll review all this, but one question I had for you, sorry, I keep like reading and then forget my question, is if I add that, I ran that job, will it
Mhm.
automatically run on each subsequent pipeline or I have to manually kick it
Um,
off?
I don't know. I'm not
Okay.
sure.
I was gonna see if she had run
I
it before.
I saw a comment on the MR. Typically, what I've seen is it should. I honestly, let me see if they have it in the documentation. Um, I would think it does, but I can't say for sure
Okay.
because it should just update the like this thing should get updated. That comment, unless this is something that's been worked on by a community contributor, in which this kind of sometimes behaves a little bit differently, the thing should just update itself. I
Okay.
don't think you can look at the job, but maybe you might have more permissions than I do. I cannot look at the jobs
I
when they're running.
doubt it. I
Um,
doubt it. But it looks like it stopped or like
all it does is
I
like kick this thing off and then it goes into the ether and
oh,
it
okay.
will
So we
come
don't
back
know.
and yeah, like it kicks off like another job and it will come
Okay.
back and run. So that
Got
one
it, got it,
did
got it.
like all that passing meant is that it was successfully able to like initiate the job.
Okay.
I don't, yeah, that might be a good question for the database team at some future day. I don't know if it actually like,
Okay.
but it's supposed to just update this. So you can look if that commit was 9 hours ago, then this, whenever this was updated, this will be like valid.
Okay, I'm adding this to my list of questions. Okay, great. Well, I feel the good news is that I'm gonna go eat lunch, which is always fun, and then
Yes.
hopefully, if there are any pipelines, because this does need to go on before that one.
Yeah.
If there are any pipelines failing, I can address those.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then get this merged. So I loved pairing. This was really fun.
I'm glad I learned about something, and then I learned a new command. And so that's always fun. At least I already know the dash P. It'll be easier to add into my workflow.
Yeah.
Some of the new ones, my fingers are like, I feel like it's like trying to get to remember like with the shortcuts.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And that's the other thing is like at a certain point, it becomes such muscle memory
Mhm.
that if someone asked me, like, how do you do this thing? And then I would be like, I couldn't
I
tell
don't
you.
know. Let
It's
me put my
just,
hands on the keyboard and watch what
yeah.
happens. I have the same
Yeah.
thing with the ones I know where I'm like, am I doing that wrong? Or is my keyboard all messed up? But yeah, I've actually had to change in Ruby my shortcuts because they took them away to like figure out what they used to be
Mhm.
by memory and like put them back.
Oh,
It was
wow.
very annoying when I realized they took
Breaking
shortcut
change.
away. Yeah, it probably was a new version. I didn't even read the change log. But it cost me some, yeah, it caused me some pain. But
Oof. Oof.
thank you for an awesome pairing session. It was nice to kind of
Yeah.
delve into something that you're working on. And
Yeah.
yeah, maybe next time I can bring the chat apps thing if I'm not done with it.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, cool. It was good to talk
Cool.
to you. Have a
Yeah.
good
I'll see you
lunch and
later.
rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.